our first story. Our
All
first
right.
story about electric vaporware. Are you excited? I'm pumped about this story.
Okay, can we attack this as two different stories, not just one?
Let's
Because it
so
really is. The
okay. So we have
vaporware you're talking about,
yeah.
electric cars, is really
So
two companies.
we're talking right now about Lucid is going public with an S pack,
Right?
a reverse merger, and then Rivian is going the IPO route at a $50 billion value. Lucid's S pack is official at 24 billion. And
Right.
it's two separate stories, but they're too similar yet two separate segments. Fair enough.
Well, no, and I don't mean two separate segments. What I'm talking about is let's start with Rivian because
Yes.
they're
Okay.
kind of going, even though yes they go under the same umbrella, and I think vaporware is a good term to use because this is my problem with both of these.
Right.
Neither of these companies currently exist except for on paper. You're drinking a liquid death
Right.
because it's a logo on a can that has been sold to you. Have a product in your hand. Both
Yes.
of these companies are intellectual property.
Right. So my biggest beef with and I'm a car guy, and I've said conflicting things about electric cars in this podcast, but the main thing I'm walking away with, or the main point is, I'm not opposed to electric cars, and you may see me someday in the hills of Central Texas in an electric truck. Okay,
Yep,
that
me
doesn't mean
too,
that I don't
probably.
have, you know, 60s era muscle cars, 90s era JDM cars in my garage. It means on a day to day basis, vehicle for a lot of different reasons. That all being said, I can't go buy a Rivian
No,
anywhere. And it's
it
not that they're out of stock. It's not that it's a Supreme bag. It's not that it's an exclusive. It's not a stainless steel professional Rolex. It's
no.
none of these things. It doesn't
Well,
exist.
and we have no idea when. We have no idea when it will exist either. So here's the deal. So at least with Rivian, you can say that it's backed by Amazon and Ford, right? Which obviously give it some credibility. They have a standing order from Amazon for I think 100,000 custom electric vans,
Here's the thing.
right?
Here's
That's a
what the
pretty big order.
listen. Here's what that order means. Zippity zop zooey. It doesn't mean nothing. You know why?
Well, no, until they can
Because
produce the product, it doesn't matter,
it
right?
doesn't exist. An order is hypothetical, not real. So what's happened is the tech bubble has leaked and it's spilled onto other industries. This is one of those industries. And Elon Musk is partly to not blame. He's part of the reason why these electric car companies are so hot. They don't sell a product. I can't go anywhere and buy a Rivian. What Tesla
This is
did.
why you have to be careful. And this is I'm gonna say something here that Danny doesn't like because of his not political views but money views. In
I
that
don't like anything you say. So what's new?
that is true. So I'm generalizing here. Is these companies? What is the point of going IPO, of going SPAC, of any of this? It's rich people raising capital, right? Would this company be going public right now if there wasn't three companies last year that all raised more than several $billion in very similar technologies in China, right? And
Right.
non-existent car companies that raised billions of dollars from
Neo
investors,
Xpeng.
a bunch of them, right? That from investors, and
Yeah.
all of that is raising billions of dollars for these companies that may or may not ever deliver a product. And if they don't ever create a product or create a good product,
Right.
ultimately their stock price will be worth zero, but billionaires still made billions.
Of
You see what
course.
I'm saying? It's a way
And
to
that's
create money in.
listen. I don't disagree with that necessarily. I just don't understand who's going to buy this stock.
Well, okay, so everyone. right? So with Rivian, you've got Amazon and Ford that are going to do everything they can to get people to buy this stock, because every stock that's sold is less money that they have to invest in the
Yeah,
company to get to a product, right?
and one of
That's why I say
Ford's
separate. Lucid's not
yeah,
that way.
I know. Okay, so Henry Ford, one of Henry Ford's great grandnieces or granddaughters or somebody is on the board of Rivian, and Rivian actually had a tie up to an electric SUV and truck for Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what the wider marketplace doesn't comprehend about the car business is you can approach it from a tech angle, like all of these electric cars are approached from the tech side, textile industry, not textile, the style of tech, in the same vein that tech,
Yes,
okay,
in the
it's
mid
this
'90s. In the mid '90s.
hyper growth. We're gonna raise $1 billion, and it's hype. The
In the mid
biggest,
'90s, that's all these tech companies were that way.
always hype. It's theoretical, non-literal value. I think that's a phrase I've coined on this podcast before.
Yeah.
But the point is, they cannot comprehend what it's going to take to erect an entire infrastructure, not just to charge these vehicles, but to maintain them, to sell them, and to service them, and to finance them. And that's where I think a lot of these plays are going to be, just like General Motors and Nikola. It's going to be one of those things where they're going to flame out, and one of the bigger players is going to come and scoop up their technology.
Ultimately, it's going to have Ford on the side. It's going to have
I think
General
so.
Motors on the side. All of that, because I believe the same thing. They're going to use these as ways to generate an influx to pay for the research and development. And then ultimately, they're going to come down in stock price until a General Motors says, you know what? Thank you. And scoop.
We're gonna buy you.
Ford
Yeah.
on this one. Thank you. And scoop. Yeah. But who gets left out in that is the shareholder themselves. Now, let's talk about Lucid a little bit. Lucid is going the SPAC route. It's essentially merging with what's called Churchill Capital 4, which is on the NASDAQ, CCIV.
Right.
But since the article you originally sent me on this, there's been an update. They've announced that merger. It's no longer in theory. It's going to happen. And since then, the stock has dropped by 50%. Now, here's why. The initial evaluation that CCIV was telling its shareholders was $100 billion. We think this company is worth $100 billion. When the official paperwork got filed and stuff like that, the evaluation between $24 and $25 billion. So,
again, the big man uses the term valuation.
Valuation.
I
My
didn't
point,
bring it
though,
up. I didn't
is
say it. I'm just
as they were
time.
pushing the marketing, as CCIV has been pushing for the last month and a half in their marketing, buy our stock because we're gonna merge with. And
it's gonna be $100 billion,
and it's gonna be worth $100 billion, and that stock has been going like this, right, for 30 days. It's been going up, all the way up to just above $60 a share. Right. Again, this valuation comes in at 24, 25, and then all of a sudden that valuation drops to where it should be for a company of that size, right? Down to half. But if you bought it at 45, 55, 65, now again, I told Danny before we started this, kind of getting on the Idiots versus Idiots stock podcast here, and we've actually got another story about stock today, but the point is, I want to get these kind of things out there because these are fundamentals of stock investing. That, again, if you just read we live in a headline news world, today's world, right? We're all thumbing through our phones.
Most people don't read past the headline.
Right. So if you read a headline 2 weeks ago that said CCIV is going to merge with, Rivian, and it's going to be worth $150 a share before... I'm sorry, Lucid is going to merge with CCIV by the end of the year, and it's going to be worth $100 billion, right? Which means a stock price probably between $60 and $100 a share, and you bought it at $50 a share, and you wake up 2 weeks later, guess what? You read, merger is going to happen. It's definite. And then you check your stock account, and it's half of what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Because you didn't understand the difference between $25 billion and $100 billion, or you didn't even get there. in the
Yeah.
story.
And let me just say this much. What's unfortunate for Lucid is they say they're coming out with a sedan this year. God only knows. We've been promised a vehicle from them. They took $1 billion from the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia. Or sorry, not Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Public Investment Fund. Um, I mean, these raises are absurd to me. It makes no sense. Again, another problem that Lucid has is it's coming out with a sedan. We live in the everybody wants an SUV crossover. We want tall wagons. Okay. Our parents and grandparents drove wagons. We want tall wagons. And the point is, they're going to be at a huge deficit until they can get there. But, and listen, here's the other thing, though.
Yeah.
The Lucid Air sedan actually looks better than the Tesla Model S. The Tesla Model S is super old.
Well,
But
okay.
here's the difference. Here's the difference.
Yeah.
You can go look at you can go to a showroom right now, I think in Phoenix or Las Vegas. You can look Lucid Air. You can go to a showroom in a bunch of cities in the United States and buy a Model S.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
wrapping this story up, let's draw the conclusion here. You can't buy any of these things.
But they're worth $50 and $24 billion apparently, and that's, guess what? That's after funding, venture capitalist funding. Okay, Rivian, as of January of 2021, had already pulled in $26.7 billion in venture capital. It's not even an IPO.
I know,
$26 billion.
And in one of our previous episodes, I had talked about how Bill Gates had given some seed money to Facebook, and he purchased 1% of it. And everyone thought at that point, like, I think it ended up valuing the company at $200 million or something like that, something absurd. And it hadn't taken in a dime, and they had very structured user growth. And it seemed so perplexing. He's playing a game. And listen, I'm all for games. I'm a true free market, laissez-faire capitalist. Okay.
How many numbers, or what's the number on Scrabble you would get for the word perplexing? Like, that's,
I don't know.
That's a lot of perplexing. Very good word there, Danny. That's all I'm saying. Very good word. Go ahead. Go ahead with your perplexion.
No, but it was perplexing. But to the average market, it's perplexing. But to the person who understands the business they're in, which is the game, they're saying
it is.
So here's what happens: when he owns 1% of this company, hypothetically, it was valued at $200 million, based on his investment. The next person, you never take a down round in venture capital. In the game of venture capital, you're out there raising money. Never want to do a down round. So if you do a seed round or a Series A, your valuation has to go up on your next raise. Otherwise, if you take a down round, if you're Uber or somebody and you end up taking a down round in venture capital, it means that your business is circling the drain. So,
well, because in the venture capital stage, you don't make money. You're not making money.
But it means that you're circling the drain. So your existing investors might signal to the market. They might invest again in a different round in order to signal to the market that the business is doing well. We're going to make tons of money. And that's all this is. Okay?
That's all this is.
Because these tech guys, this isn't laptops, this is cell phones, this is software. Software as a service. It's not an app. Okay? We're not trying to scale on Amazon Web Services. We're not trying to scale on Azure. When you scale an electric car company, brick and mortar, hard, takes bodies.
They have to be built, or the infrastructure to build them has to be built. The people to build the infrastructure has to be built.
You have to find the nerds that can build the robots that are going to build the car. Then you have to educate mechanics, and so
yes. So that's before that's even once you've designed it, you've got to have somebody to be able to fix it. Yeah. Like that in the masses around the country.
So
I can't buy a Lucid vehicle if there's no one to repair it if it breaks in a month or 6 months or a
and
year.
so listen, this kind of model works perfectly fine if you're Koenigsegg and you sell $1 million hypercar. Guess what? The guy who buys the $1 million hypercar drives it once a year, tows it to he trailers it somewhere, and if he has a problem, you know what they do? They just ship the car back to the factory. Yeah, it costs $100,000, but
They
you
don't
you got
care?
they don't care. The problem, so the disconnect in this market in the electric car business, and why I am rather bearish on the electric car. I'm bullish on electric cars. I'm bearish on the business
Yes.
because
See, that's a difference. That's a
yeah,
difference. Most people have that
because
opposite.
because people don't. I think electric cars are, and what I do really believe is the longer term future is going to be like the gas electric hybrid. Okay, it's going to be a gas generator up front where the existing engine is. You're going to have batteries in the trunk, and the small 1 point single liter 3 cylinder is going to charge just like the Chevy Volt or the Chevy Bolt, because
Mm-hmm.
that the infrastructure that people think, if you listen, the majority of human beings live in populated cities, okay? But the diversity of character of those people does not lead to enough sales because of range anxiety, because it's a new product. You're not going to hit critical mass until you have infrastructure. And that infrastructure, the scaling of that infrastructure, incalculable to people who are approaching this way they're approaching tech investing.
Or
Okay.
somebody develops or somebody develops in some way an electric engine that can go in an existing car. If you
They
can
already exist.
completely switch, no, but I'm saying, and create a similar product. If General Motors can pull out its, you know what I mean, gas
Right.
engine and
Yeah.
plop in an electric engine for you instead at a very
Yeah.
similar price point,
Yeah.
that's a game changer. Because then you're putting an electric, a reliable electric engine
Yeah.
in a Chevrolet Silverado, right? The
Right.
existing,
And
right? Then you
and
take
one of
advantage
those
of everything
and
else.
yeah, and one of those companies, there isn't a company out there, maybe it's Lordstown or somebody else, um, that did that where they took and they bought
Mm-hmm.
Silverados, but here's the problem. You still have to figure out how to charge that thing. Okay.
Right.
And if you have 150 mile of range, I'm afraid to go 60 miles if I only have 150-mile range.
Oh yeah, hell, in my gas engine, I don't get below a quarter of a tank. Okay,
Yeah.
I was
So,
taught that since I was little, and there's a
yeah.
reason for it. So,
And listen, you only have to run out of gas one time.
mm-hmm.
I grew up in the Midwest. One time in one winter, I ran out of gas. I was on the way somewhere, on the way to the gym, and I pulled into the gas station. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to get gas after I'm done with the gym. Didn't make it to the gym. Okay.
Yeah.
I had to call somebody. I had to call the old man. He had to come help me gas from the gas station. Guess what? On the drive back to my car on the side of the road, I learned very quickly I will never be doing this again.
Hey, y'all know, look, most of you know if you listen to this podcast for a while or you know me, you know I grew up out in the country, right,
Yeah.
outside of Dallas. And the first time I ran out of gas, there weren't no cell phones.
That's right. There
At
weren't
least
no
for
cell
us,
phones.
at least for us poor folks, okay?
Right.
So there wasn't no cell phones. There wasn't me calling daddy. There wasn't
Right.
me calling nobody. My happy out in the middle of nowhere butt had to walk to the nearest
Yeah.
gas station and get gas and walk my happy butt back. Okay,
Yeah.
but again, you
So
don't have to. We have cell phones in today's world,
yeah,
but
but the reality
the
is,
anxiety is still there.
here's the other thing. There are currently mobile charging stations that are going up where they have a diesel generator creating electricity, and the diesel generator creating electricity charges the car. Now, just going to go out there, say, hey, that's a hat on a hat. Doesn't make sense. Okay? There's no point. You can just drive a diesel car.
Look, I'm going to say this before we move on, and this is idiots versus idiots because I don't know anything about. I know how to repair a car. I know how to replace just about anything on a car. But as far as the engineering of how electric engines or gas engines or whatever, as far as how to design them, no clue.
Yeah.
My point though is I have an alternator in my truck that when I turn on the car, it powers everything in my car,
That's correct.
including recharging my battery.
Right.
How in 2021 do we not have an electric motor that has a generator that charges it, that goes infinitely?
Well, no, we do.
How is part of this conspiracy theory of in my head is they're
Yeah.
trying to make a car that can only go a certain amount of miles and trying to make a car that you buy a car and goes wherever you want to go whenever you want to go. How
Right,
can we
so-
not generate enough energy with the
It
car
does. Those
to
exist.
power the
Those-
car?
Yeah, those exist, right? It's called the Chevy Bolt and the Chevy Volt. Those had very small electric gas generators that powered the battery. Jay Leno has one, and they're coming out with a new Bolt. So right now, you can, as cheap as $50 a month, you can go lease one. This is idiots versus idiots. They're not sponsoring us. We're actually going to talk about a sponsor right now, but
But
I'm
you
just
get
saying
where I'm
when it
coming from. It sounds like a conspiracy theory to me that we have these two technologies. How have we not put them in? And not even gas powered. You realize that something like 80% of our power is generated in the United States by motion, whether it's through dams or whatever.
Yeah.
We have 4 spinning wheels on every car that goes out. We're creating motion as we drive.
Right.
How is that not used to generate power to
So-
generate your car?
So like the Prius, Toyota's already doing their brand new minivan only comes in a hybrid, right? So
Okay.
they're doing the 4-cylinder and hybrid combination, and not the same thing as a generator, but it is kind of generating electric power. So it is interesting. But
Anyway, we can move on. We've gotten far off of Rivian and Lucid, but y'all all get our points. It's Vaporware. I think they're way too risky to spend my money on stock
Well,
when
no,
it
I
does
mean, it's
IPO or SPAC.
Yeah.
It would be a great short term, just like if I could catch it in the beginning and it doubles over the first 6 months, I would take my money out and run,
well, I mean,
right? Or something like that.
A
But
lot of people did that when they doubled their money in Tesla, and they're all beating themselves over the head because stonks only go up, boys. But I want to talk to you about liquid death. I'm sure you did not know this, but on Idiots versus Idiots, we are death peddlers. That's right. We are peddling the death of plastic pollution. Not only does liquid death murder your thirst, 10% of every can sold goes to end plastic pollution. Here, your water system, water delivery. I drink a lot more water because now if you use code idiots10 on liquiddeath.com, get 2 free koozies. We actually have to change the thing on the bottom.
oh yeah, I
10%
forgot
off.
about that. Look at me, I'm an idiot.
Well, what's new? It's a podcast called Idiots versus Idiots. My expectations have never changed. But this next story is
Hey, the 2
Canopy.
koozies are probably worth more than 10% off. I'm just saying.
That's why they're giving you 2 koozies, man.